still staying here in a physical state. He could be waiting 6,000 years, since this is such a pivotal moment, and also because he's on the planet, the very planet where this first, I'm pretty sure this is the first slave, how would you say, beings. Terrans have always been slaves, but now they're getting ready to go into that God state, because it's the time for God to do the same thing the Dracos did, which was create a lower being. Just like the Greys, you know, the Greys are clones. You know, that means that they don't have a spiritual path, and they're not like a, you know, it's not as important like the fucking star or a sun in the sky, you know. Some stars are useful, and if you build other ones now, let's say you have the ability to build a star and put it in the sky, it doesn't really have its place. It's not being fixated and holding the tension with the other stars in a proper form, you know. They have their collapse rebuilding sequences and changing rates in matter, which are important, that they're used in that way. And by going down to this depths and creating lower beings like us, everything's switched up. But again, it's their choice to not one-up the Dracos, but to match them. And, you know, that's their explanation. Us as humans, well, excuse me, because I'm channeling again. Us as Terrans are going to somehow have to find our way through that. And without being submissive, you know, a slave is submissive, a slave is humble, and that's not exactly what we're going to need, because, you know, you got to be tough in this universe. We're still in the illusion, the elusive state, and stuff like Alexander the Great might not be the first one on your list to blame. Neither would any of these beings, because every time you blame one and you find something that's pertinent, they're going to have many ways to throw you off and to try to put you back on track, whether that be with candy, sweets, or whatever you want. All the way down to just getting an ass beat. And that's in your mind. Your mind's going to get crushed, because they don't like people that go against what they want. Okay, and so like I was saying, there are beings on other planets. There's been beings here. And I'm talking about Terrans. I keep wanting to say humans because we've always used that word, and it was ingrained in us to think that that was us. You know, in a way, God kind of removed himself from the picture in this last 5,000 years. You know, we've known God. God's been here. But even in the last 20 years, there was little mention of the living God. You know, people just use it as a mythological, magical proportions of themselves or something out there that they can't grasp, and so they didn't. But in a way, that was set up so that we could all be blinded and unuseful, because the gods were ruling us this whole time and giving us ways and pathways to follow, and now they haven't. They took those away, and they're slowly disappearing for the new ways, and that's called the transition we've been waiting for, or that we were all expecting from the 2012, which was also, we've been guided. You could look at the onion and see all these layers and through time. There's many examples. I could think of the 60s, you know, and the messages we were receiving then. You know, in the 80s and 90s, we were hearing aliens, Greys, you know, these kind of aliens, Dracos showing up, New Age, Aquarian. All these words and things are here to tell us that, you know, things are changing. You know, and I don't like to channel these things. I like to give it in voice of perspective of, you know, where there's no spiritual sly hand going on. And you could hear one side without the other side rebuttaling too soon. So we received many messages, and those were all to let us know that God's no longer going to take over our body and live our lives for us, which is really what was happening. You may feel like it was you, and I would advise you to do so and not totally dismiss it, because it will crush you. But if you really want to be free and leave the matrix, or leave the God reality and see what you really are, you'll see that there's very little to us. You got to remember, each one of us only lives, you know, roughly 80 years now, and that's just the new time limit that we've been given. But, you know, we don't live long enough to slow down our metaphysical rate or to see time. You know, we don't really know what time is that often. And time can be perceived, space, time, all those things can be seen, felt, put into perspective. and lives. And right now we're in a not even a second to second rat race, and it's really pathetic and ugly. And I don't want to talk about that right now, so we'll continue on with. I don't want to give too much more slave history, but before I finish, I want to say that there were slaves in India 400,000 years ago. There were slaves in Atlantis 200 to, let's say, 13,000 years ago. And Atlantis existed before then, but I don't know if slaves existed on the continent, because it wasn't necessary for civilization at that time, because they've only been in the fourth root race of Atlantis for 2 million years, and in the beginning they didn't have no use for other beings or that part of civilization. So there is a structure to civilizations of higher beings, which not a lot of people are aware of. I've seen people on the internet and books written that touch on it or even try to explain it, but there's no real fullness to it, because all that were channeled from the gods themselves, and if it's not necessary, they're not going to tell you. Or if it's not it can't be put into perspective for the greater good, they're just not going to tell you. So also, we should also know there are intergalactic communities of Terran beings out there right now watching us and monitoring us. And it's not that those slaves are unhealthy. They're given so much energy at times, and they just follow the commands that they're not unhappy. But at the same time, when you witness the truth of what you're supposed to be and what your rights should be, a planet isn't given restrictions. Neither are suns. They may have order and perspective and all that, but they were birthed into that, and we were made. So that's the vast difference in that, in my opinion. So these other beings are watching us right now too, and who knows exactly what they're going through. I would say happy, sad, everything. They're going through a little bit of everything, and it's not really about them either. It's about us. But I just want everyone to know that, in God's plan, they isolated us here for a while and made sure we weren't aware of, what's out there in the galaxy. And that cut off a lot of, ways to free your mind, which wasn't necessary. They want you to have their mind. They want to give you your mind and your perspective, and they're going to put the info in front of you, just like I am, because they're going to do that stuff anyway. So this is like your side route, and it won't get you free, but it will help you out. It'll help you out when you don't want to take all that crap in. You do have your shoot. I don't even know if you have your rights. You'll have to find some way to amend yourself. And by knowing your history, not being fully benevolent, and just take it. Yeah, there's a good one. That's a good channel. To know that you don't want to be fully benevolent, because that's not what you were entitled to. These gods were born with million-year lifespans. Really, some of them 5 million years. 1 million years. They're not going to martyr themselves. These beings, they're set up to be proactive. They never are in true sufferment. They've always had their ways to look past time. It's not like us in the moment we're ready to die and stuff. That's not true with them. So so once again, let's see, let me finish up here. God's plan, unity, consciousness. And yeah, I'll just touch on that briefly, in that we all are working under one mind construct. And they channel it through certain vessels at times, and I felt like I was the vessel for a while. Other beings have been the vessel, and there will be others, soon. But this conscious grid, the government's aware of it, everybody's aware of it, and they're just, especially in other countries, their governments are all aware of it. Every government, from China, Russia, America, Canada, Cuba, even people in Hollywood have been making movies for a while, and like if they're not told why they're making the movie. They're just told, make this movie in this way and you act in this way. And when they are told that, they're also told of the Illuminati plan that was, into play, which was crushed, which is to reveal the gods. So it's not like everyone doesn't know this stuff. This stuff could be found out if you're looking for it. But the perspective on this is, you know, from years of fighting this stuff, you know. So thank you, everybody, and I hope you found something that is going to help you live a little bit longer. Stay on your path, not be totally susceptible to everything the gods tell you, because they may tell you some of this, but they won't tell you all of it. And there's still a lot more too. You know, we got a dual body. You know, there's a lot of things to discuss. So thank you.